Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. It's another all new news live stream we've got going on right now. Lots of talking points to get into today. We've got latest on Declan Rice's situation. We're going to be talking about Kyle Walker. We've got the latest on Nicolo Barella. We've got the Premier League fixtures announcements to talk about as well. Roger Ibanez possibly going to Tottenham Hotspur as they continue their search for a centre-back. Arsenal making some waves with, like I said, Kai Havertz, Declan Rice. Anything else as well that you guys want to talk about as well will be great. Will make for great and interesting reading content-wise and just talking points in general, because obviously this is where we just try and have a bit of counselling, a bit of therapy, a bit of talk about making sense of all of these headlines. And there's also a headline that I want to kind of talk about that just really amused me waking up this morning. So we'll get into that one a little later, but there's a lot to get into, a lot to sink our teeth into today. So do stick around, and like I say, always hit the like button on the way if you're enjoying the video, or enjoying the live stream. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things always and probably greatly appreciated. And of course, always get involved in the comment section. I love to hear from you. I love to hear your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, on either the stories that I'm talking about, stories that may break during the stream, of course, or just anything that I may have missed that you may want to talk about and get some thoughts and feelings upon. And we'll continue to go back and forth over this. But without further ado, let's get into this live stream. Let's get into this discussion, talking points. And we're going to start things off with Declan Rice. Now, this is a saga that's been drawn out a little bit, and we thought it was nearing its conclusion, and it still might be heading that way. But today, there may be a bit of a twist in the Declan Rice situation. David Ornstein took to Twitter earlier this morning, and he put out a rather interesting tweet that may just suggest that this Declan Rice saga isn't over yet, and there might be a final sting in the tail for Arsenal. Now, it does look positive on its surface for Arsenal. Things do seem to be progressing for the Gunners, and it does seem, you know, if I had to put money on it, it does seem right now that Arsenal will still be getting their top target come sometime in the very near future. But Ornstein's tweet is very interesting. Ornstein took to Twitter today to say, exclusive, Arsenal have made opening offer to sign Declan Rice from West Ham. Tim Lewis and Karen Brady held talks at Premier League annual general meeting. I think that's AGM. I would assume that's probably AGM stands for. He's abbreviated it to PLAGM, though Edu and Richard Garlick leading process. So it sounds positive right there and then, but then it's the way he ends the tweet with Man City now actively exploring own approach for 24-year-old. Now, much like for the majority of this season, Man City are seemingly waiting to pounce on Arsenal's target yet again. Much like earlier this season, where City were obviously chasing Arsenal at the top of the table, waiting for Arsenal to slip up and make a mistake to pounce on their target of becoming Premier League champions. Once again, City are seemingly entering the race for Declan Rice and are waiting to pounce if Arsenal slip up on their target to, of course, go and get Rice themselves. That seems to be what David Ornstein's alluding to there. Like I say, we've talked about Rice a lot. We understand why Rice is highly valued. We understand why Rice is an extremely good player with still a lot of potential at his feet, but has a lot of talent for the here and now and for the present, and is ready to obviously step up from the likes of West Ham onto a bigger stage and showcase what he can do at a bigger club, on a bigger stage like the Champions League, and continue to progress as a man and as a footballer and as a midfielder and as everything else that he represents as a leader, and so on and so forth. If this is true, if Man City are genuinely entering the race, Arsenal need to act quickly. They need to act fast, because this could just be media-driven stuff. This could be just, maybe someone in the Declan Rice camp wants to speed things up. Maybe they've leaked something to the press in terms of, well, City are involved. So that means Arsenal must get their skates on and must get this deal done and dusted with very quickly, because otherwise, if he's going to have his head turned by Man City, let's face it, the only pull that Arsenal may have over City is the fact that Rice won't have to move. He can stay in London. That's the only pull, if that's to be the case, you would imagine, because City can probably offer Rice more money. They can probably put more of a guarantee on Rice winning trophies throughout his career. And all of those things are going to obviously tempt Rice a little more, you would imagine. It's not a guarantee. It's not a certainty. Obviously, it comes from David Ornstein, so it's more of a reliable source than most, but it does very much intrigue people that maybe, just maybe, Declan Rice, this transfer saga, could be hijacked by Manchester City going forward. We know that obviously they're looking to bulk up in terms of their midfielders. We know that Mateo Kovacic is seemingly on the move to Manchester City this summer. We're waiting to see if that gets official confirmation and everything along those lines. But Declan Rice certainly is a player that, would boost anybody's team, I think, in the Premier League. And Manchester City's it is no exception to that. I think he's an excellent player. And I think that it will boost them in terms of quality and, of course, boost them in terms of quality and depth as well. And I think if obviously, depending on what's going to happen with Calvin Phillips, his sort of transfer to City hasn't exactly gone to plan for City, maybe, but for him, he's played 40 games, maybe not even 40 games in a Man City shirt, and obviously managed to win the treble and has got 3 winners' medals, despite the fact that he's only played like a grand total of like 400 minutes or something ridiculous like that. It could be a way of getting a massive upgrade maybe on him. We'll obviously wait and see what happens with this, but I would say Arsenal need to move quickly. I think, obviously, I know that it's obviously been tough with West Ham being involved in the Europa Conference League final, and that's kind of dragged things on a little bit. But Arsenal need to move quickly. They can't afford to miss out on another target, because if they do, this would reek of January, where they missed out on Mykhailo Mudryk, where everything seemed to be in place, everything seemed to be nice and going according to plan for Arsenal to go and get Mudryk. And then Chelsea swooped in at the 11th hour and took him right from their grasp. They don't want to do that again to Rice. And although that you may have sat there going, well, Mudryk, they might have dodged a bullet there. Obviously, only time will tell on that, whether they did or not. Rice, though, is more of a guarantee. Rice is more of a legitimacy than what Mudryk is right now. And I feel like if they miss out on him, okay, they may turn their attention to Moises Caicedo, and that's not necessarily a terrible or bad backup to have. But say they miss out on Caicedo as well. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see what happens with this case. But David Ornstein puts out a really intriguing tweet in regards to Declan Rice, that Manchester City could be waiting in the wings to pounce on this potential transfer story should Arsenal slip up. Like I say, a very similar story to what we've seen throughout the majority of this campaign, with Manchester City looking to pounce on Arsenal at the top of the Premier League table. Now they have taken that battle to the transfer window. I'd love to know your thoughts on that one. Do you think City will actually pounce on Declan Rice, or do you think that Arsenal will get the deal done? They'll wrap it up very, very quickly. Like I say, sounds positive with the opening bid stuff, but Arsenal need to move quickly, it seems. Moving on, we'll stick with Arsenal actually for this next one. It's a bit of a follow-up to yesterday's video that I did in regards to Kai Havertz being on Arsenal's radar. Now, allegedly, Arsenal are very much interested in Kai Havertz. To sum up yesterday's video a little bit, Arsenal are interested in Kai Havertz. Arsenal, once again, looking to Chelsea to try and strengthen their squad. I said yesterday that Kai Havertz, for me, this is a very strange deal. I don't necessarily see why Arsenal would go for someone like Kai Havertz, especially when he doesn't seem like the kind of player that Arsenal necessarily need or desire straight away. But a little bit has come out after that. And it's very interesting to me because I think if this is legitimate, if this is true, whoever is doing this sale at Chelsea deserves a pay rise, a promotion, and some sort of real mad and special gift, because allegedly Kai Havertz could be sold for something in the region of 60 to 70 million. Chelsea, depending on who you believe and what reports you read, allegedly Chelsea are wanting 70 million for Kai Havertz. And allegedly, in some reports, Arsenal are willing to pay up to 60 million for the German international. If this is true, if this is legitimate, well done, Chelsea. Well done, Chelsea, if you can get 60 million for Kai Havertz. Because, okay, it's not exactly the full price tag of what they bought him for. And I said that maybe in certain cases, you can see that he's been a very underwhelming signing. He arrived with so much hype, so much potential, that it just hasn't quite lived up to it. And that's true on so many levels. But if they can get 60 million for him, a player that obviously will still be living off the hype of the Champions League final goal that he scored, the winner against Manchester City a couple of years ago, which arguably could have covered the remainder of his transfer fee, depending on obviously competition fees and what that did for the club in terms of revenue and in terms of sponsorships and in terms of everything else. It's a very, very good deal for Chelsea. It is a very good deal for Chelsea for a player who hasn't quite hit the highs and levels and demands and expectations that, of course, were set before him when he obviously joined the club back in 2020. An incredible move. Allegedly, personal terms will be no issue, but it's all about finding a fee that both clubs can settle on. And allegedly, it could be in the region of 60 to 70 million. And if that does happen, like I say, whoever's conducting the sale at Chelsea, if I had a hat, I'd take it off to you, sir, or mom, or whoever. Because that is incredible business. Absolutely incredible business. We're waiting to see, obviously, what happens on the Kai Havertz saga going forward. But it does seem very intriguing to me. Next up, we're going to be talking about Nicolo Barella. Now, this news broke last night that allegedly Newcastle are in hot pursuit of Nicolo Barella and were supposedly closing in on a £50 million move for the Italian midfielder. Reports came from, I believe it was Luke Edwards. Yes, Luke Edwards of The Telegraph, who broke this news. But reportedly, there were conflicting reports afterwards that suggested that this move wasn't as close as what was first imagined, and that allegedly Barella was still yet to talk to the Premier League club in regards to a move. Fabrizio Romano came out after the news broke and said, Inter have not received formal approach or bid for Nicolo Barella. Newcastle have genuine interest, as the Telegraph called, but nothing is advanced at this stage. Inter sources feel 50 million is nowhere near the valuation. Also, nothing agreed with Barella on personal terms. So it does appear that maybe the Telegraph have maybe jumped the gun a little bit on that, depending on, again, who you believe. But this is very intriguing. I would say that even if it's not legitimate, even if it's not a real signing for Newcastle, I'd say that this still shows a big ambition from the club, from the manager, from whoever's obviously conducting this business. I'd say that this does show some big ambition, and this is actually a very good move by Newcastle to at least try and get a player of this quality and this caliber. There have been reports that Newcastle's transfer budget is not as monumental or as massive or as huge as what was first feared. Something in the region of 75 to 80 million has allegedly been called upon by various sources that have said that due to FFP and things, Newcastle's budget may not be as high as what obviously the money that they have at their disposal may have liked. I don't know if that changes depending on if they can maybe sell a few players here and there, or depending on what happens there. But obviously, we'll wait and see what happens with Newcastle, because their overall target appears to be strengthening the midfield. We've already talked about James Maddison this summer already, and obviously that saga continues to rumble on. But that might take a massive chunk of that transfer budget, and there may not be enough for both Maddison and Barella if they continue to pursue both. Obviously, Maddison's had interest from elsewhere as well. There is Tottenham, of course. And I think I remember reading maybe even Aston Villa maybe throwing their hat into that ring as well. And I think that would be an interesting kind of talking point as well, if obviously more was to come of that. But Barella, Maddison, very intriguing, very ambitious from Newcastle, and I like it. I like both. I think both could very much come into that Newcastle midfield and do a job. And two different types of midfielders, admittedly, but I think both could very much complement each other, and both could very much complement the rest of the squad as well, and work very well within their means and within how Eddie Howe wants to play, whether it's in terms of being more attacking, whether it's in terms of being more defensive and allowing the other midfielders around to kind of go more and express themselves further up the pitch, whatever it may be. I wait with much interest and much intrigue as to the kind of business that Newcastle will conduct this summer. Like I say, doesn't appear like they've got a hell of a lot of money in their transfer budget this summer, despite obviously getting Champions League football. And that may come back to bite them later on, with obviously a lot of teams looking to spend a lot of money that are in and around them this season. Add in the factor of Champions League football as well. It might be a little bit more of a difficult season for the Magpies going forward, but of course, we'll wait and see what happens in terms of transfer activity, and of course, with how Eddie Howe can continue to progress managerial-wise and how he can continue to get the best out of this Newcastle side going forward. Next up, Premier League fixtures. I'll just touch on this very quickly. Premier League fixtures were obviously announced today. I personally don't get too excited by this because we have to play everybody anyway. I was just always intrigued as to when obviously the big fixtures are for my club in particular, for Liverpool. And I know that we've got a busy Christmas period in which I think we host Arsenal and Manchester United around that festive time. But yeah, Premier League fixtures were announced today. Like I say, I think every game is going to be tough this season. For every team, whether you're Man City or whether you're the newcomers Luton Town, I reckon every game is going to be tough. And every year, the clubs seem to step up more and more. I think the only thing I'm surprised at with obviously Liverpool is that we've not got a newly promoted side on the first day of the season. We've actually got Chelsea, and B, we actually didn't get Luton Town away. I was actually rather surprised that that was the case. I would have put safe money on Liverpool probably getting Luton away from home on the first day of the season at a 12:30 kickoff. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised by that. We have got Chelsea though. Maurizio Pochettino's first competitive game in charge, of course, that will be. And normally those Liverpool-Chelsea games, they used to live up to a lot of hype and a lot of expectation. And then in recent years, they've just been 0-0 draws. So we'll wait and see what happens this time around. But no, Premier League fixtures were announced today. Let me know your thoughts on that one. Like I say, I'm not too bothered about it personally because we have to play each other at any stage anyway. And there's no telling, obviously, who's going to be achieving what they want to achieve, who's going to be overachieving and who's going to be underachieving yet. So I'm not too fussed, to be honest. Like I say, the only thing I'm surprised at is that Liverpool didn't get a newly promoted side and definitely did not get Luton Town away from home on the opening day of the season. But there you have it. Moving on, Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker next on the agenda. This one intrigued me. This one does intrigue me a bit. Kyle Walker may be set to leave Manchester City, according to The Athletic. Allegedly, he's been unhappy at the reduced playing time he's kind of got. He was unhappy at being left out of the Champions League final. And after 254 appearances for Manchester City across 6 years, after 14 trophies accumulated in those years, the 33-year-old may be on his way out of the Etihad this summer as Pep Guardiola looks to have a bit of a clear out and a bit of a freshen up of his squad. We know that obviously Pep likes to do that from time to time. We know that Pep likes to keep things fresh, keeps things changing all the time to try and stay one step ahead of his opponents and to try not to let his team and his squad go stale. For me, it might be the best move. It might be the best move for both. I think for Walker, it might be a bit comfortable there and it might be a bit nice there at City. Obviously, he's getting a very decent paycheck every week. He's obviously winning trophies at will. He's obviously getting all these amazing opportunities and sponsorships and everything. And he'll still get that because he's Kyle Walker and he's built up quite a high profile for himself. But at the same time, with obviously Guardiola's plan and ways of keeping things fresh and keeping things going for them, it might be time for Kyle Walker to leave. And especially when you consider that, you know, although he can play at centre-back, I wouldn't say it's maybe his preferred position to be the more right-sided centre-back. And obviously with Guardiola changing his formation and changing the way that he plays to have a three at the back with obviously inverted fullbacks, the two in midfield just sitting in front of the back three, and then, of course, your four spread across the midfield. It may be time for Kyle Walker to move on, in all honesty. He does seem to prefer Akanji at that right centre-back role, and I think that's obviously what we got a feeling of, obviously, this past weekend, where, of course, City went on to claim their first Champions League title, in which, obviously, Akanji started ahead of Walker in that right centre-back role. Whether that's going to be something that they do moving forward or not remains to be seen, but, of course, we do know that there has been a fair bit of speculation surrounding several Man City players. Kyle Walker is seemingly one of them, but there's also the likes of Bernardo Silva. Again, like we talk about Bernardo Silva, I feel like every transfer window, but he never seems to go. And why not? He's a massive, important player for them. He's a big game player for them. Why not? Obviously, there's the Okay Gundogan situation. Will he resign? Will he go for another challenge elsewhere? The likes of Arsenal and Barcelona are seemingly interested in him. There's Riyad Mahrez. He's had interest from Saudi Arabia, but could go to a lot of places elsewhere, mainly, well, probably abroad, maybe somewhere like the likes of maybe it's Italy or maybe France or something. That could be a possibility for him. Calvin Phillips, like we mentioned, maybe that kind of thing hasn't exactly worked out for Pep Guardiola as he planned, or maybe the injuries are just too much for City to possibly handle at this point. And there may be one or two others as well, as obviously, like I say, Pep likes to keep things fresh. He likes to keep things constantly rotating to obviously keep opponents guessing and to stay one step ahead of those opponents. But for me, at 33 years of age, and also with 1 year left on his current deal, Kyle Walker could be finding himself leaving the Etihad, and I think it would be smart for City to do so. They could cash in on him a little bit whilst they have the opportunity to do so. Keep things fresh, like I say, for Pep Guardiola, and I keep things going forward. Hey, Ballum, nice to see you, bro. I hope you're having a good day on this fine it's not Wednesday, is it? Thursday morning. Do West Ham ever have a Boxing Day match at home? Apparently, they avoid because of Westfield Shopping Centre. I don't know. I've never actually thought too much about it, to be honest. I haven't actually thought too much about it. Chelsea away. Not often you see this happen in the Premier League. As I said, I've addressed the Premier League fixtures, and I said that I was very surprised that we didn't obviously get Luton away or a newly promoted side in general. Normally, Liverpool do start the season with a newly promoted side, and obviously that isn't to be the case for the forthcoming season. So very surprised by that. Like I say, Liverpool versus Chelsea used to be a game that was intriguing and always was feisty, and it's sort of lost its way in the past few years. It's not been as exciting. I think there've been like several 0-0 draws, including draws in the cup finals as well. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see on that. Nice to know you're good, bro. I'm good too. Just like I say, got lots to talk about in this one. Lots to talk about. We talked already about Arsenal, Declan Rice, Kai Havertz, Nicolo Barella, Kyle Walker, and the Premier League fixtures. So we're all good. Chelsea is a good away test. Yeah, I think to start the season off is going to be good. And like I say, it's Mauricio Pochettino's first game or competitive game in charge of Chelsea for that one. So that one's going to add a little bit more of an extra layer and an extra layer of intrigue to it. So I'm very interested to see how they go. And obviously, Chelsea are going to be doing a lot of business this summer, as are Liverpool in that midfield area. So that could be very intriguing. Kyle Walker is getting old. Manchester do sell players when they need to, such as Raheem Sterling. Yeah. City have never ever stood in the way of their players leaving. And part of the reason is because obviously they have the money to replace them, and the wheel just keeps on spinning in that regard. So with the change in formation, with Walker getting older, with Pep's love to keep things fresh and to keep things rotated, it wouldn't surprise me if Walker was to leave this summer. That's all I'll say on that one. We're going to be moving on, though. We're going to be moving on. We talked about Walker. We talked about Barella. We talked about Premier League fixtures, Kai Havertz, and, of course, Declan Rice. We are now going to be moving on to Roger Ibanez of Roma. Now, this is a guy that I've been hearing about for the past several days being linked with Tottenham. I've watched him a little bit. I don't watch Serie A or Roma religiously, but the little bits and pieces that I've caught of him, this guy looks okay. This guy looks good. He's a centre-back, which obviously we know that Tottenham are looking to strengthen in that particular area. So we know that obviously they're looking for centre-back options, left-sided centre-back options. Does this mean that if Ibanez is to come in, that might put an end to the Maguire transfer saga with Tottenham, perhaps? But this is the guy that's been strongly linked with Tottenham very much recently. And he's a player that is strong, he's intelligent, he's aggressive. You only have to look at his stats to know that he likes a challenge, he likes to put himself about a bit, and he's actually got good positional awareness to make plenty of interceptions. So on the surface, he looks pretty good. He's a player that, like I say, I've not watched religiously, so a lot of this is the little bit that I have watched mixed in with obviously the research that I've done on this guy. But obviously we know that Tottenham are looking at this player, and the reports coming out today are that they're going to continue their pursuit. They're going to set up new rounds of talks. They're going to get closer to signing this guy. We know that they're obviously on the verge of maybe making David Raya a permanent signing as well. So Tottenham are making moves in this transfer window. Is this the kind of flashy name that I think Tottenham fans would want? Obviously not. But at the same time, what do you expect, Tottenham fans? It may not be the high-class, flashy, shiny name out there, but at the same time, you haven't really got a lot to attract you right now. Oops, my bad. You haven't got a lot to attract you right now in terms of the club you are, the club you're at. So if you're unhappy about this news, if you're unhappy about this kind of player, it's not Harry Maguire, but it's a player that maybe fits in with the Postecoglou system more so than what Maguire would. Put some faith into it. That's all I'll say. If you're not really happy about this, put some faith into the new manager and into what he may be attempting to do. Like I say, I don't know too much about this guy, but at the same time, from what he looks like he could grow into a better player than what he currently is, and he's a pretty good player right now. It seems like I say, he's been part of this Roma squad all season. Under obviously the tutelage and management of one Jose Mourinho. Tottenham fans will know all about Jose Mourinho, of course. And yeah, I'm interested. I'm very much interested by this signing. Like I say, it doesn't look like it's a terrible signing, and like I say, Tottenham seem to be making moves in this transfer window. They're not made, like I said, they're not the high-profile, flashy names, but at the same time, they look like they're good, solid pieces of business. David Raya looks like a good, solid piece of business if you can get him over the line. You've got Ibanez that is coming in, that may look good. If they are going to go after James Maddison, and obviously Newcastle are to miss out for one reason or another, that could be interesting as well. We'll have to obviously wait and see on that one. It's not that. Newcastle away for Liverpool too. Yeah, I mean, we were the only club to beat Newcastle home and away last season, I think, and we were also the first to beat them away from home too. I think there was only us and Arsenal, wasn't there, that managed to beat them at St James's Park, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but I think it was only us and Arsenal to beat them away from home. But yeah, that would be a very, very interesting test. And obviously, like I say, it's going to be interesting for the way that Newcastle go about their business this season, obviously with having Champions League football as well to contend with. So we'll wait and see on that one. And I do agree. Barella to Newcastle would be a phenomenal piece of business, in my opinion. Really would complement, I think, Bruno Guimaraes very well. And I think with the legs of Joe Linton alongside him and Joe Willock to that extent, depending on who, of course, they play, adds depth and options to their squad and then in that particular area as well. I think it would do them the world of good to get someone like Barella. We all want Harry Maguire to stay. Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, though, even if he does stay, Ten Hag's not really going to play him much, so I guess it doesn't necessarily matter right now. It's not like it's Solskjaer and he's got a weird obsession with playing Maguire constantly. So I guess it doesn't really matter at this point. iPhone alarm, I didn't even realize I set an alarm today. To be honest, that's my bad. Ryan Kent went Turkey League. Liverpool got money for him, and Rangers didn't sell him in and lost him for free. Yeah, that's just the way that some transfers are, I guess. Yeah, just the way that some transfers are. Depends how it is. Obviously, there's so many clauses now in certain contracts. It's mad to keep up, and there are some very random and weird clauses out there as well. So, yeah, it is what it is. And iPhone 10 or something, iPhone XS, but yeah, very, very old, and I'm not too bothered about having the latest phone or anything along those lines. So, it's what it is. So, talk Roger Ibanez. We're going to stick with Spurs for the potential last story. If you've got any, obviously, stories that you want to talk about or anything else that you want to talk about, feel free to hit it in the comment section, I'm sure, or in the chat, because I'm sure make for interesting and great reading. One story that I was amused about when I woke up today. Richarlison. Now, for those who don't know, I'm not exactly his biggest fan. Not simply just for the reason that obviously he used to play for Everton, not just for the way that he seems to dislike Liverpool so much, and he seems to have this weird and random obsession with Liverpool. I just think that this guy is overrated. And I think that this guy, when he talks, feels like he's got a bigger ego than his footballing ability. Why did I wake up today to the sort of news that he's been in the media talking about Real Madrid and how he would love to play for Real Madrid? It's his dream to play for Real Madrid. But he's a Tottenham player, and he obviously has a job to do at Spurs, and he wants to kind of prove why Spurs signed him for such a big transfer fee from Everton last summer. I seen the interview. A Tottenham player wants to play for Hala Madrid. Real Madrid won't sign him, I think. Oh, absolutely. Like this has baffled me. This baffled me when I woke up to it as well. This is a guy that has allegedly, the context is that Richarlison has been in conversation with Carlo Ancelotti. Now, of course, the two obviously know each other from their time at Everton. Yeah, randomly, Carlo Ancelotti was at Everton. Who remembers that? But allegedly, the two have been in conversation, and apparently, it was brought up in an interview. And apparently, he was talking about how it's a dream to obviously play in the infamous all-white strip of Real Madrid. I found this hilarious. I found this amusing because if there is genuine interest there, what the hell has happened to Real Madrid? What the hell has happened for Real Madrid and Carlo Ancelotti to actually think that this guy could be the solution to Karim Benzema leaving? Explain this one to me. Explain this one to me. Like, what? They're scraping the bottom of the barrel through to the wood. Like, what is this? What is this? Was he just trying to talk his way into a move, or is there actually some legitimacy and some truth behind it? I highly doubt it. I think Madrid have probably got bigger fish to fry, and obviously with the Kylian Mbappe situation still swirling around, I guess like Richarlison would not be anywhere near. But I don't know. Like I say, it just amused me that for whatever reason that was brought up in an interview. And Richarlison was talking about maybe joining Real Madrid. And I, for one, found it hilarious. I found it amusing. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like he was trying to talk his way into a move for that one. But we'll wait and see. Jude Bellingham will wear number 5 at Real Madrid. I wonder if Dortmund will retire the Dortmund shirt that Bellingham wore, like Birmingham did. I think Raul Jimenez will leave Wolves. Gomez a much. Sorry, I'm like that. Go MLS, a much slower league for him. Good to see him back from a head injury and. Last few years with his injury. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. I really like Raul Jimenez, and I feel like he was just starting to come into his own when obviously the injury occurred, and it was a horrifying injury, of course it was. But you can clearly tell that it really did stop his momentum, and it really did affect him, and he's done so brilliantly well to obviously come back from that. But unfortunately, he's just not the same player that he was before the injury, and it's a real shame as well because he was a really good striker. Like he caused defenses problems on his day, and he was very, very good, and he was a handful for a lot of defenses. And it's just a shame that obviously, like I say, he never really recovered from that, and he never really found his form back after that injury, because you can tell that with his drop-off, Wolves have not been the same, and Wolves have really struggled to score goals. They've managed to survive in the Premier League miraculously through not scoring that many goals, but you do fear that eventually they're dancing with the devil a little bit, and eventually the devil will get them. So we'll have to wait and see on that, whether or not on what happens with Jimenez, on what happens with Wolves, if they can find a clinical and consistent enough goal scorer. We'll have to wait and see. Steven Giles said this about Coutinho. Brazil and South America players love their Real Madrid and Barcelona teams because of South American culture. Could this be a reason why Richarlison said this? Yeah, I mean, the influence that both of those Spanish teams have on not just Europe, but the rest of the world as well is absolutely global. Like, you think of soccer and you think of the great Galacticos that Real Madrid have had and their influence around the world. So, of course, they're gonna be affected global, and you know they're gonna have that. A lot of players probably did grow up watching Brazilian Ronaldo and Ronaldinho, for example, and obviously the influence that they had on the European game as well as the global game, obviously coming from Brazil, obviously astronomical. So he's probably grown up watching the likes of R9 and obviously Ronaldinho. I mean, he even calls himself R9. The guy's weird. I think he's even got a tattoo of himself on his back. He's weird. Richarlison wants to leave Tottenham in other news, and bad enough. Will be interesting if Tottenham sell him. That is what's happening with Harry Kane, really, doesn't it? You don't want to sell Richarlison. United get this massive money takeover. They put in a bid for Kane that Daniel Levy can't say no to, and then they've got no striker. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. There is obviously news that allegedly United are prepared to just drop the entire Harry Kane saga and look for someone else. They're looking at the what's the guy's name from Atalanta? I'm gonna have to look this up because the guy that really does annoy me that I can't think of his name. What is his name? Take care, mate. Take care. I appreciate you coming on and appreciate the interaction. Yeah, he's got big shoes to fill if that's the case. Like, massive shoes to fill. Take care, mate. Have a good day. Appreciate you coming by. Why can't I find this, guys? Hoyland, which just sounds like they're trying to get their own Haaland, but decided to go for a new one. Interesting stuff. Like, they might be going for Hoyland. There's also talk of maybe a couple of other targets that United may have as well. But yeah, depending on obviously what this takeover thing does, and let's face it, this takeover thing has been dragging on now for a while. We'll obviously wait and see on that one. And I said that was going to be the final one, but I forgot I'm going to talk about Mason Mount as well. According to Ben Jacobs, Manchester United will be back for a second bid for Mason Mount. Chelsea rejected the initial £40 million offer near instantly, and there remains a high probability Mount will leave, and he's keen on the Manchester United move. Chelsea sticking to their valuation for now, and Manchester United won't go above 60 million. Seeing this more and more, Mount may have like 1 year left on his deal, but if the club need him for right there and now, they will be prepared to take the gamble and take the risk on just biting the bullet and paying whatever fee they want up front. And that's what you're seeing more and more. And that's obviously what you're going to be seeing, maybe even a lot more across this sort of type of situation. Mount has 1 year left on his contract. Manchester United want him. They seem to have outran everybody in this race to sign him. Everybody seems to have just left Manchester United to their own devices in this. And it seems that United will get the job done one way or another, whether that's going to be post-takeover or whether that's going to be before the takeover. I would imagine post-takeover. Like I said, I can't envision or imagine the Glazers or whoever it is, like, parting with money on the verge of actually selling the club anyway. So it is what it is for now, but obviously this Mason Mount situation continues to rumble on, and we're not really any closer to than we were a couple of weeks ago. So we'll wait and see on that one. But yeah, we've covered a lot. We've covered a lot, and I like it. What is this saying? Sky Sports are reporting that allegedly West Ham have rejected Arsenal's opening £80 million plus bid for Declan Rice. So it seems that things are on the move there. And like I say, going back to the original point of this, if Man City are genuinely involved, Arsenal need to move quickly. They need to move quickly, effectively, and efficiently if they are to wrap up this deal. Because, like I say, Arsenal may have the pull of him not having to move and him staying in London. But if he wants to test himself at the very top level, if he wants trophies that are... I'm not saying that Arsenal's trajectory isn't on the way to getting trophies, but City are already there. Arsenal are on the verge and have the project and have everything going for them that looks promising on its surface, but whether they can actually get to City's level or not remains to be seen. We will have to wait and see on this one, but they have to move quickly on this. They have to move effectively, efficiently, and properly on this situation. There we have it. We've covered a lot. We've covered a lot in this video. Those are just obviously the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of the news I've talked about? Any of the stories that I've talked about in this video, whether it be the likes of Declan Rice, Kai Havertz, the Premier League fixtures being announced, Nicolo Barella, or whoever else that I've mentioned and talked about in this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, in the comments section. I'm sure it'll make for interesting reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening and stopping by and interacting and doing whatever it is that you've done in this video / live stream. Very much appreciated. Always. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks live stream, or all New-Newz live stream, should I say. And I will see you all again soon in another video, live stream, or whatever the hell it is.